To the graduating class of 2021, the families, trustees, President Littman, members of the faculty, Vice Presidents Thompson, Winquist, and Podal, Dean Mitchell, Dean Qatar, and Dean Donnelly, the honor to speak to you is one of the greatest moments of my career, for which I thank you. And to soon be a recipient of an honorary degree from this college is the greatest moment of my career. I'm grateful for Dr. Udall crying because that might happen in a minute. It is Juneteenth. I hope most of you knew that already and what that represented, other than perhaps it's the last time you'll take a biochemistry final or go to anatomy lab. But it also commemorates earlier in June, 100 years ago, that an angry white mob massacred unarmed Black residents, destroyed their homes, churches, schools, hospital, and businesses in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Greenwood district, known as the Black Wall Street. It was the wealthiest Black community in America at the time. This event that left 10,000 Black people homeless, destroyed an equivalent of almost $33 million of property, and close to 300 people dead, began when a young Black man was said to have assaulted a young white lady that was operating an elevator. He was a shoeshine boy. As he was about to exit the elevator, he tripped. He grabbed her arm to break his fall, and the clerk in the store said that he assaulted her. And then the clerk said he raped her. She did not press charges, however. Some of the Black male residents went to the jail where hundreds of white men were standing ready to lynch the boy. An altercation occurred and it sparked the massacre. Then there was Emmett Till, a 14-year-old boy who was burned, shot, lynched in 1955 in Mississippi while visiting his grandparents for the summer. He was accused of whistling at a 21-year-old white woman who was the owner of a small grocery store. The brutality of his murder made him a civil rights icon. And while the ratification of the 14th Amendment in 1868 enabled African Americans to be citizens, it was in name only, because we still couldn't vote until 1964 with the 24th Amendment prohibiting literacy tests and poll taxes and things to suppress the vote, as they're attempting to do now. Women could not vote until 1920. And imagine, indigenous people were declared citizens less than 100 years ago in 1924. The slaughters of the Cheyenne, Shoshone, Blackfeet, and Lakota people have reduced their population considerably. In North America, pre-Columbus, there were 10 to 12 million indigenous people, and by 1890, there was an estimated 300,000, their land stolen and their selves marginalized. Now there are an estimated 6.79 million indigenous people. The current hate crimes are not reported so frequently, but they nonetheless exist. And what are the recent Asian American hate crimes and all the discrimination and racism they are experiencing here in America? And then of course, there are those who think that the Latino people are just criminals, drug dealers, or rapists. Why am I telling you these stories? What does it have to do with you? Everything or nothing. It's your choice. You've learned a lot about disease over the last several years, and I believe racism is the greatest disease in America. A destructive and violent source of sickness with far-reaching tentacles. Slavery was the greatest system of moral depravity in America. It continues to have its insidious consequences of racism and discrimination. You are about to take the Hippocratic Oath because we were told that Hippocrates is the father of medicine. Just as you may not have been aware of the massacre in Tulsa until very recently, because it was not important to those who wrote the history books. You may also not be aware that the first physician was Imhotep, an Egyptian living around 2650 BC. He was also an architect and an astrologer. The same writers decided it was not important for people, all people, to know of the contributions of this man of color. It was not important. And actually, I never had any idea of the impact of African slaves on naturopathy when this country was settled. And our contribution was significant. These types of exclusions continue to perpetuate one ethnicity being better than another, racism and discrimination. Whether you are in the lineage of the enslaver or in the lineage of the enslaved, there are attitudes that result in dis-ease. Slavery was an American problem, an American experience, not just a Black American experience. We are all victims of the dis-ease of racism. It's funny though, race is a social construct born out of a need to dehumanize another group of people in order to ensure a sense of supremacy. We are one race. By the time I got to Bastyr University, I was no stranger to the racist behavior, having been told in high school I should be a domestic worker. Having low self-esteem and a lot of shame as a result, I told my parents I didn't want to go to college. I wanted to be a secretary. My father reminded me I had received a D in typing, so that probably wasn't a good career choice for me. Subsequently, I received several degrees. And at Bastyr, being the only African American in the school, people said things to me like, I don't see your color when I see you. Not true. And I want you to see color, but I am an articulate, educated, intelligent, sensitive, conscious woman of color. And there are many of us, all colors. By the time I had been there 2 years, comments such as these and other factors made me realize I was depressed. I took a year off to explore my inner world, to find out who I was, a child of all that is, Mother, Father, God, the universe, or whatever name you want to call it. Finding out I was connected to all people through that energy. Today, melanotic and non-melanotic Americans experience the same feelings of despair, depression, anxiety, fear, self-deprecation, a sense of powerlessness resulting from an institution based on hatred that has had ongoing, generational, pernicious repercussions. Studies at the University of Pennsylvania found that all people, regardless of ethnicity, living in communities with high levels of racial prejudice were indeed more likely to die younger than people living in more tolerant communities. A University of Toronto study found that harboring racist feelings in a multicultural society causes daily stress, leading to chronic problems such as type 2 diabetes, hypertension, and cancer. African-American women die younger and faster than other women from cancer, along with indigenous people having higher rates of cardiovascular disease and mental health issues. You will have patients with heart disease, hypertension, cancers of all types, diabetes, leukemia, autoimmune problems like mixed connective tissue disorder, lupus, etc. And underneath those diagnoses, you will hear the stories of abuse, sexual, physical, mental, and emotional, from the alcoholic father-mother or the absent, distant, fearful father-mother, abuse that continues into adulthood and marriage. They will tell you of low self-esteem and self-deprecating behaviors and approaches they have toward life, or the fears of just not being good enough, and the boss who continues to support those ideas. They will tell you of how that feeling stems from being the product of a bi-ethnic marriage, and that the half-siblings who are Caucasian or African-American are abusive. They will tell you of their anxiety and depression from a very early age, when their parents fought or their sibling committed suicide. And you, graduates of 2021, you will listen with compassion, humility, and caring. Without judgment, you will allow this human being to tell their story and hopefully feel honored that they have chosen you. You will love. You are a successful person already. You're graduating from naturopathic school, and that is a Herculean task, no easy matter. It will not be good enough to be a good doctor. You must be a good person. I advise you to have a spiritual base, explore your inner world, to take classes in self-development, get rid of those limiting ideals and beliefs that your classmate mentioned. and cultural sensitivity if need be. Practice what you preach. Do whatever it takes to be well in your spirit, mind, emotions, and body so that you are resilient. Remember, doctor means teacher. It does not mean God. Be humble, be grateful. Know that everything is perfect even when you don't like it. The 14th Dalai Lama of Tibet said, "My true religion is kindness." You must be involved in the cycle of giving and receiving. Maybe it's a bottle of vitamin C for someone who simply can't afford it. Give it to them. You must do simple things like return phone calls when you've already listened all day. Explain what naturopathy is again and how it is different from homeopathy, for example. When you just want to go home, you will do the right thing. You may need to do more difficult things like standing in front of a health food store, giving out flyers and cards as I did years ago when I first started. The injustice you experience may require you defending your profession. Fortunately, you will not be arrested for practicing our art and science, as Benedict Lust was 19 times. He came close to Dr. King's record of 29 times, both fighting for the rights of marginalized people. But you will defend your profession against discriminatory practices when someone says this is not real medicine. Graduates, this is the only real medicine. The rewards cannot be measured. When a patient tells you, "I haven't ever felt so good." Thomas Edison said the doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will instruct his patients in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease. You will shape the future. You will be changing people's lives, making the planet a better place, creating wellness. The Dalai Lama also said, in this highly interdependent world, individuals and nations can no longer resolve issues by themselves. We need one another. We must therefore develop a sense of responsibility to protect and nurture the global family, to support its weaker members, and to preserve and tend to the environment in which we all live. This is similar to the oath you are about to take. When I was 10 years old, the maid of honor in my brother's wedding asked me what I wanted to do when I grew up. I replied, "Save the world." I hope you will join me. Congratulations and namaste. God bless us all.